In the year 1915, there were few black high schools. The first black public high schools were in cities. These high schools were a struggle to get. For example, several cities with a population of 20,000 or more didn't have black high schools. In Columbia, South Carolina, there were 0 black high schools, 2 white high schools, 1,211 blacks in the high school age population, and 1,314 whites. In 1916, Columbia built Booker T. Washington.
My father rented a room in Columbia next to my aunt. He allotted us 40 cents a week to live on. Me and my sister lived in one room. We walked to school, or we could have rode the streetcars, which I never rode. It cost 5 cents. My Aunt Maria gave us food occasionally. My sister would cook, and I would clean up. We had outside water, and the room was on the corner of Hampton and Park Street, 2 blocks away from Main Street, with no running water. You had no paved streets except for Assembly Street, between Main Street and the river. Gervais Street had bricks on it. We would get wood from people passing in the wagons, selling it a penny a stick, or 2 sticks for a penny. My father would bring us up some wood from time to time, as well as food. Ulysses Barlow.
The community really supported Booker well. In fact, some people would send their relatives here to live with someone else so that they could go to school. So it really took care of all the children's needs within a radius of 50 miles. I remember Dr. Clarkson and Mrs. Morgan, who was a Clarkson. Their father would bring them into town every morning so that they can go to school. Just think about getting up in time to get to school at 8 o'clock and you're living down past Hopkins with no good roads, almost like a buggy ride. But they had a truck and they came. Gardenia Fair.
When you look at a school, you have to look at the pieces that come along with the school. It's not just a physical building per se. It's the teachers, the students, the principals, and other administrators. In that particular school, what I found in my research was that it was like a family. The teachers and the principals were pseudo-parents. The students considered themselves to be brothers and sisters. I mean, just kinship going on.
The teachers were very dedicated. I don't think there was a teacher there that just thought about a salary or how far they could go. They enjoyed doing what they did. They shared their lives with us. They made us feel like we were the most important people in the world, and they taught us pride and tradition. And they said to us many of times, I remember Miss Washington was my history teacher. I used to think that she was a mean lady, but all the time she was building my character. She told us, you take with you wherever you go your people and the pride for your people, and you're going to make it all right. When you go out there in the world, whatever you do, remember you have us on your back. So therefore, you don't do anything that's wrong or that would embarrass us. So in those days, that was very important to us. Carolyn Lloyd Carter.
The teachers expected excellence from these students, nothing less. The teachers themselves, they were highly educated, trained at some of the finer schools in the nation. As you know, during that time, to get a graduate degree, these teachers had to leave South Carolina because a school that was like 2 or 3 blocks away from Booker did not admit them to graduate studies. So the teachers were fabulous. The principals were excellent. If you ask anyone who attended Booker about teachers, they speak of them always in this positive, loving tone.
Before each class, Mrs. Saxon would give us lectures about life. She gave us wonderful historical instruction, including African American history. We were not deprived there of learning about our history or our background. She was such a wonderful and dedicated teacher. Maud Johnson Robinson.
We were loaded with extracurricular activities. There's just no comparison to what we did back then, and we pride ourselves. We had, I think Thursday was the day that our clubs met. Well, of course, being involved in athletics, I had what you called Black W Club. And of course, if you had earned a letter in a sport, you were an automatic member of that particular club. And we met on Thursday. We paid our dues, sometimes maybe 50 cents. If you missed a week, it was like 75 cents. We made enough money so that we could do some of the things that we wanted to do. And then we also used to get buses. Like if our kids were going to play somebody in Aiken or Charleston, the school district allowed us to do this. We could get buses for our fans. Sometimes the basic admissions for a game was like $2 or $3. For $5, you could get a trip and the game ticket to go from here to Charleston and back, Orangeburg, or wherever the case may be. Wherever we were playing, everything was so great, and we had all kinds of clubs. Robert Reynolds.
Booker was full of clubs. Most, if not all, the students were members of some type of club. There was athletics, there were Future Homemakers of America, tennis at this black school. So there was so much going on, and this school had a very powerful and positive relationship to the community at large. If you would look at some of the annuals, you'll find there were the booster clubs, parents that came to volunteer in the school. So the school was the heartbeat and the center of the African American community in Columbia, South Carolina, up until 1948-49, when C.A. Johnson High School came into being. But Booker remained the benchmark of excellence in I say black high schools in the South and in the nation for that matter.
We learned about Booker T. Washington, Mary McLeod Bethune, George Washington Carver. We would learn about them. As you know, they were not in the history books. This was telling you orally, your heroes, people who went out there and defied society at that time, which was segregated and very racist. These were the people that went before us. We were all going to accomplish something. We were all going to bring our people to a different level. Carolyn Lloyd Carter.
You'll hear names like Fannie Phelps Adams, Franchot Brown, Celia Dow Saxon taught there, Judge Matthew Perry, Reverend Darby of Charleston. There's so many. I spoke to one person, and they told me that September Clark actually had some affiliation with Booker T. Washington High School. This school, Langston Hughes came to speak, George Washington Carver. I mean, there's so much rich history with this school. There was a glue that held the community together. Booker was a piece of that glue. And when that school closed, you find unraveling of that glue and the deterioration of certain elements in the black community. It wasn't just the closing of a school, it was a closing of, or I think, dismantling of a life per se. The mascots, the Golden Tornadoes, was gone. The school colors, the marching band, the award-winning athletics program, the vocational education that was a major part of this academic life of this school. One person told me that I was speaking to, if you would pool the number of electricians, plumbers, tailors, who are black in the city of Columbia, 9 times out of 10 they would have come out of Booker T. Washington High School. But due to the lack of funding for that particular school, I think it was too little, too late. So there was always inequalities in the funding of this public high school. But still yet, they went on. They worked with what they had. Yearly, the Booker T. Washington Foundation or Alumni Association, they get together. So the spirit of Booker is still alive and well in the minds and hearts of people who were touched by that great school.